Here's an old electric desk fan that I've got torn apart on my bench, attempting to repair it. The name of this fan is a ZIP, Z-I-P, and looking at it, it was obviously a cheaper fan. Here are the blades that came off of it. And when I got this fan, the power cord was obviously rotten on it. This is the old cheap cloth covered power cord that was on it. And it has several bare spots in it, and it's very brittle, so there was no way I was going to try to use that. Wanted to salvage this plug, but as rusty as it is, I really don't even know if that's feasible. I suppose I could try. Main thing I'm worried about with this fan is the possible condition of the bearings. I find that many of these disposable throwaway fans from back then, by the time I get them, the bearings are shot. And that's usually because people didn't lubricate the fans as often as they needed to, and coupled with the fact that they were made cheaper than, say, an Emerson or Westinghouse or GE or some other well-known fan. I've got everything taken apart here, and I've got the wicks, felt wicks, soaking in oil. Try to get them lubricated. And I've cleaned all this up as well. I've cleaned the shaft up. I want to clean the rest of this up. I'm going to have to replace the power cord, obviously, and in order to do that, I'm going to have to separate these leads and just attach a modern power cord, and I'll use heat shrink tubing to insulate the leads to ensure that they don't short out to anything. Okay, let me get on with this and see if this thing can be saved, or is it going to turn into a shelf queen. I think probably the first thing I need to do is check the continuity of the windings. And if that checks out okay, then I can proceed. Otherwise, I might as well just put this thing back together and set it up on the shelf and look at it. Okay, I'm reading 37 ohms across the windings, so that's reason enough for me to continue this little project. And by the way, I really don't know who made this fan. This is actually the first fan I've ever seen with the ZIP name. I did look up the brand on the internet, and I found some newer looking fans that were branded ZIP that were labeled as Quickwave Industries, but that's really about all I can tell about them. I actually don't know how old this fan is, but I'm guessing from the looks of it, and since it uses a cloth power cord, I would say probably mid-1930s to early 1940s, somewhere in that time period. Okay, so now that we know that the motor windings have continuity, let's continue and see if we can get this thing to at least turn for us. Okay, here's the new wire soldered on to the existing leads coming out of the motor with heat shrink tubing used for insulation. I had to do some searching to find some small diameter wire that would more easily fit up in here like the original did, so now I'm going to have to figure out how to tuck all this away so it'll all fit back together. And now we'll put it all back together and lubricate it and cross our fingers. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, here's the fan all put back together. And I found a plug that was very similar to the old rusted out plug that was on it. And I've got it plugged into my Variac. So let's turn it on and see what happens. think the blades are slightly off balance, but no big deal. It seems to be running fairly well, and it's fairly quiet for one of these cheap fans. Even though this was considered a cheap throwaway fan back then, I would still rank this one above any of this Chinese garbage made today. Okay, there you go. My circa 1930s or early 1940s zip desk fan. Thank you for watching, and more to come later.